Welcome to the section 3 of Writing for Publication Training, which is Academic Writing Skills. In this section of Writing for Publication Training, you will be provided key issues and tips that will be helpful in writing a research paper for publication. The headings that will be covered in this section include academic writing tips, common mistakes leading to journal rejection, and proofreading and editing tips. Here are some issues to consider in academic writing style, which are not rules to follow, but rather choices that can be made. Single authors in some fields use the first-person pronoun I, but we, of course, is common in co-authored papers. In a few fields, contractions may be common, in most they are not. Some authors prefer some negative forms over others, believing that those on the right are more academic. Some readers, for example journal editors, object to the use of vague expressions, such as and so forth and etc. In many fields, writers typically avoid addressing the reader as you. This means there is a need to use passive voice. Sometimes the use of a direct question can be a very effective means to draw readers' attention to a point. It is particularly useful when laying out an argument or research questions to be answered. Adverb placement might be important. Often in academic writing, adverbs are placed in mid position rather than in the initial or final positions of sentences. Consider whether you should split infinitives to verb. Although split infinitives are not so common in some areas of academic writing, they are sometimes used, particularly to avoid awkwardness or ambiguity. Use as many words as you need to express your points, but try not to be wordy. Otherwise, readers may have difficulty following the point. Consider using both active and passive voice. The key is to choose the right voice for the right purpose. It can be difficult to strike a balance between using the right technical and specific language, maintaining the flow of ideas, and keeping the reader's interest. Here are some simple ways to make article writing clearer and more accessible, specifically when writing in English as a second language. Use minimalism to achieve clarity. Effective English writing is simple, not complex. Limit each paragraph to a single message. Indeed, a single sentence can be a paragraph. Keep sentences short, simply constructed and direct. Use verbs, especially in title, and avoid footnotes so as not to slow the reader down. Your paper is not a dialogue with the reader's potential questions, so don't over-elaborate for not anticipating them. Don't worry too much, just enjoy writing. It's more important to be understood than it is to form a grammatically perfect sentence, so write the way that you speak. Inject questions and less formal language to break up tone and maintain a friendly feel. It's always better to write in the first-person active tense than in third-person passive. Choose concrete language and examples. Making pre-submission inquiries before even beginning writing can save huge amounts of time. Editors like receiving communications from authors, so write to them and ask, I have just completed a piece of research. Would it be appropriate for publication in your journal? Remember that readers will be varied, even if the paper is going to a specialist journal, and that academic language must be accessible to make the article more concise and reader-friendly. Here are some helpful tips around what to do and what not to do. Research article is written for the entire scientific community. Make sure that it uses commonly accepted terms and mention specific details when referring to any jargon or specialized terms. Many scientific concepts are abstract, intangible, and multifaceted. Consider breaking these down into layers of complexity. A picture is worth 1,000 words, or in some journals, 100 words. So, if you believe you can express a complex idea as a diagram, do it. Another thing to consider is that readers will be more likely to digest the information you are communicating if it is framed as a story. Many authors writing scientific papers, especially non-native English-speaking authors, feel that they need to use complex words to make their papers sound more impressive. However, this is not the case. Editors of high-impact journals want to receive papers that are clearly written and can be easily understood by as wide an audience as possible. Removing redundancy is another way to make scientific language more simple and accessible. A paper full of long, complex sentences with a very few paragraph breaks can be tiring to read and difficult to follow. To avoid this and present the ideas more clearly, it can be used several tips to remove redundancy, which are presented in the relevant section of the Writing for Publication training website. Most scientific endeavors are articulated through words, and effective communication requires the skillful use of words. To conduct effective communication in your writing, there are several strategies to use. The first of them is to express your research clearly. This is important because errors can distract. If there are too many obvious errors of spelling, grammar, punctuation, syntax, and usage, editors and reviewers might begin to notice them at the expense of meaning. More practically, poor language can prejudice your reviewers. Better language is linked to increased citations. Here again, language plays a vital role. Writing with good language can increase your citations and academic profile. The second strategy of conducting effective communication in your writing is to use meta-discourse. An essential aspect of successful academic writing is the writer's ability to establish competent authorial identity by judging the certainty of knowledge claims and to manage their explicit presence in text while persuading readers of their research contributions. And the third strategy is to create sentence templates. Good science is the most important thing, but the science needs to be clearly understandable. To achieve this, it's required to write short sentences first and join them later if needed. So it's important to develop a repertoire of ways of expressing meanings in discipline-specific contexts. And common mistakes leading to journal rejection is another topic in this section. Editorial form and preparation mistakes can occur for many reasons, such as not paying attention to guidelines in information for authors, not using good grammar, proper English. Don't let language stand in the way of your great ideas being seen by the peer reviewers. Including poor quality figures and illustrations is another reason for editorial mistakes. Content mistakes result from the issues including submitting a topic that is outside the journal's scope. Submitting a manuscript that lacks novelty is another reason. Even the best of well-written research will be rejected if it reports nothing new. Similar to a lack of novelty, a properly researched paper may be rejected if it doesn't bear scientific significance and move the research forward. When do not clearly stating the hypothesis may result in content-related mistakes. Before start writing, make sure hypothesis in language is expressed crystal clear. If it is not clear, reviewers and other readers won't be either. Having data that doesn't support conclusions or making inconclusive results is another reason for content-related mistakes. Using poor methodology and making poor inappropriate statistical analysis is the last reason for content-related mistakes. It is always a good idea to engage in an extended consultation with a statistician familiar in study design before launching into data acquisition for your research. And finally, ethical mistakes. As an author, submit each paper to only one journal at a time. Submitting the same manuscript to multiple journals at once, waiting to see which journals will accept it, is an example of scientific misconduct. You can certainly quote and reference your previously published work, but don't cut and paste earlier text and images into new research papers to avoid being guilty of self-plagiarism. New submissions should contain new content. Part of the submission process involves disclosing financial involvements of authors. Proofreading and editing your work is an essential final step to completing your written piece. Here are some tips for you to keep in mind next time you conduct final checks on your work. The most effective way to proofread your work is to start with making sure that the overall structure and logic of the piece is consistent. Proofreading is your last chance to pick up on small mistakes. They are missing punctuation or trivial misspellings. So make sure you also go through your work with a fine eye, picking up on the smallest mistakes. When you edit, the most important thing is to be organized about it so as not to lose work. Remember, you are editing, not rewriting. Once you have proofread your work and identified areas of improvement, it's time to edit. The point here is to take the less is more approach to editing by prioritizing fixing mistakes that you have spotted to ensure readability. This is the end of the theoretical part in this section. Its practical part provides practice of reviewing of a research article according to considerations of academic writing. I hope you found useful this video and thank you for watching.